morning, good morning. I cannot believe it's time for another webinar. This is number 9 of our series of gas webinars in the Southern African Hemisphere. So let's look at some technical things. Remember, there's a chat. Please use the chat for generic things that you want to talk to, connecting to people. We're going to post some interesting information in the chat box for you. So look at the chat icon, and then there's a Q&A icon at the top. The Q&A icon is to ask the questions you want answering for our presenters. Last month, we've realized that depending on the package that you have, you might not have the Q&A button. Pop your question then in the chat. One of my colleagues will help to transfer that to the Q&A session, but we are scared we miss it if it's in the chat. So please try to rather use the Q&A for your questions if you have that button. Otherwise, we will try to throw your question in the right place for our Q&A facilitator to pick up on your questions. 9 webinars already today in webinar number 9. Incredible, what a journey it was, and what a commitment from my OTC colleagues to keep this momentum going and do this on a consistent basis. We've talked about a lot of things gas, from regulatory environment to the inland sources, to outland sources, to compressed, to liquefying natural gas, trying to capture all the subjects. Please remember to tell us if there's any other gas subject that you are curious about and that we can generate a webinar around that. Now, last month's webinar with the regular environment really did well. We see there's a lot of interest in that, and we do hope to follow up on that a little bit more. So please, if you've missed any of the webinars, we post everything on YouTube. 2 weeks after the live webinar, we will post the webinar, and a week or 2 after that, we post the Q&A session. So you will always have access if you can't attend in person, and we love to see the comments and see people watching those as well. We will post the link in the chat box for the previous webinars on YouTube channel that you can follow. If you subscribe to the YouTube channel, wonderful. You don't have to be reminded. You can see it as it comes up. Otherwise, we are on LinkedIn as well. And if you are part of our email subscribing lists, you will find the advertisements for the webinars when they come up. So yes, it would be lovely if we can keep this connection going and walk on this journey together. But today we talk about transitioning from diesel to gas in Southern Africa. We're going to look at the conversion of diesel engines, not necessarily only for transportation, but the conversion can happen in mines and any engine that uses diesel, and see, can it work with CNG, compressed natural gas, or LNG, liquefied natural gas? Is that a strategic alternative for diesel fuel in transport for South Africa? We're also going to look into detail of engine conversions, case studies for trucks, and also transport corridor readiness, and so much more than we're going to give you today. So I'm very excited to hear from our speakers. And with that, I'm going to jump in and introduce our first speaker for the day. You have seen him in some of our previous webinars, one of our OTC directors, Koos Taljaard. Koos started off as a mechanical engineer and a project manager with extensive experience in mining and mineral beneficiation in the cement industry. They held various positions: executive, project, operational, engineering, business development, quite a broad range of experience that he comes with, that we can see in these consulting roles he's playing. He joined OTC in 2017, and there he has been involved in a lot of the gas field development, LNG production, and power generation and assignments, both in Botswana and in South Africa. And a lot of other studies that I know Koos has been involved in. Koos is here with us. I'm excited that he joins us, and he's going to be our first presenter. He's going to speak on what he does so well, strategic direction. He's going to talk about CNG and LNG, strategic diesel alternatives for Southern Africa's transport in the future. With that, I'm handing over to Chris.
Okay, thank you everybody, and thank you for the kind words for me. Yes, as Wilmina said, I will start talking about CNG and LNG as a strategic alternative for transport fuels. A bit of just welcoming and framing. In OTC's role, we are consultant in a specific promoter for onshore gas and strategic advisory in infrastructure modeling and governance overlay. So we feel, and myself feel very strong about onshore gas and the role it plays in the Southern African region. The purpose is to position the CNG and LNG as a viable and scalable diesel replacement. And I will go through two short case studies just to discuss that, and then we will hand over to CNG Africa for more technical insight. But I mean, what you see there on the photo is a very typical situation in South Africa, and that also lies for opportunity. South Africa, and I focus here on the South African numbers, but obviously it expands into the total of Southern Africa, consumed 12.5 billion litres in 2024, basically transport, mining, agriculture and backup power. And then maintenance heavy engines and declining resale reduce the fleet return of investment. In South Africa, it's actually very tough to make a profit out of your transporters because of the low margins. Then it also contributes to pollution. And then 60% of the diesel is basically liquid fuel mix, and it's increasing. Around 80% of that is imported. You can just imagine what's the impact on the foreign outflows. And then there's serious issues of volatility, theft, emission risk that makes it very difficult for your consumers of this in your transport, logistic heavy economy. And then your ESG and fuel security pressure demands strategic alternatives also. What's happening in the global arena versus in South Africa, and there's a definite lag. Global markets are accelerating EV and CNG and LNG adoption, and you see it across the world. South Africa lacks policies, incentives, infrastructure and fleet transport planning. And all starts with policies, and if we can put the policies in place and followed by incentives, that could add a lot of. Where we do see traction is in the urban centers that are starting to favor natural gas and electrical taxis and buses, and CNG Africa speakers will get to that, but we will start seeing that there's more fuel stations for gas in these centers. What is the alternative? Well, it's basically, I mean, obviously diesel and then CNG and LNG and your EVs. And if you look at the slide, you basically see that CNG and LNG is the hotspot or the sweet spot for South Africa. It offers more balanced, scalable transition for long-distance heavy-duty vehicles, bridging the gap between global ESG pressure and local infrastructure. And it's very scalable. EV is obviously a long-term solution, and we'll work on that, but it will still take time, and it do have its shortcomings for us at this stage. The key enablers for onshore gas, and you see I'm focusing on onshore gas, and if you remember our April webinar, we talked a lot about the onshore gas, but you can see in the picture on the right-hand side quite a lot of gas fields, and they are available and what's happening to them. But the first key is we're slow in unlocking these CBM or natural gas onshore resources, But a lot of companies are busy working on that. It's Potala in the Sarawi area and also Kalahari Energy. Then Kinetica in the Amersfoort area, and then Botswana and CBM and others. But what's important to accelerate reserve certification and confidence that you can get your funders to get involved in that. At this stage, these companies are basically startup companies, not having all the finances. So the development funding is key. But then the modular infrastructure, on top of these areas, you can deploy small-scale LNG plants. And the Politic International that you see a photo on the right-hand side is a very good example of that. We had presentations on that already in this. When start developing cryogenic corridors, and the N3 and maybe the Platinum Belt, the N4 in South Africa is very good examples. And start converting or putting in place LNG trucks or dual fuel trucks and the refueling backbone, and then get your own OEM support. The photo then on the right-hand side is a Scania truck, a fully CNG truck. We had the opportunity to spend time with Scania, and that truck is on the road, and it's working, and they're supporting this initiative. But to still make it work, you need mass. So you need anchor fleets, truckers, mining, logistics in your municipality. You need to aggregate the demand to justify the infrastructure, which is obviously very important. I've touched on that. Policy and regulation. And we need to execute the gas master plan. Finalize it and do it, that we all pull in one direction to support this. Fleet management needs definite incentives. It's very expensive to do these conversions. And you need regional integration. And then you can also build a Southern Africa LNG corridor via CBM linkages. So you can basically link up Botswana, Zimbabwe, and South Africa. You've seen this slide, but I'm just doing it for refreshing. But what's important is that the gas is available onshore, and you can see the TCF numbers. It's quite high, and that can support a development of the CNG and LNG. And also, it's very well positioned. It's really on the N3 corridor. It's in the Botswana area where there's quite mines or power stations, and in Zimbabwe. So you can actually, you don't need to move gas too far to convert it to LNG or CNG and then start using it. Now, what developments is busy happening on these fields? Potala at this stage, upgraded their resource already to 454 BCF. Their exploration continues, and they have signed MOUs with off-takers. Interestingly, after I wrote this, there was also a press announcement that MDCB, the government investment arm in Botswana, have also pledged to take up a 50% stake in this to continue the feasibility. Kinetica Energy is very active in continuing resource development by drilling more holes and certifying that. And it's buying investment. Then Renergen is in the process of a merger of ISP setups, and hopefully that will bring in more finance to really run and start the infrastructure ramp and hopefully start doing better. We all know that Renergen had a very difficult path. Invictus Energy is also busy with forming a strategic alliance with AL Masur Holdings, and they're progressing also quite well with their gas expansion. So what we can see from this slide is that the gas is going to be there, it's going to be certified, it will be ready for investors to put more money in this. What is OTC doing in this ecosystem? We're playing a strategic advisory role that we can help with the development. So we assist our clients with development planning, strategic planning, and also detail work, stakeholder alignment, and look at the whole business strategy and business model to make that work. We assist with technical and business modeling solutions, and then also scalable rollout frameworks. So we help clients to navigate complex transition with integrated business and technical solutions. And this area specifically because it's in the early phase of its development, that overall strategy look is very important. Just a case study, and I call it XX Haulier. I didn't want to put the name up. They have a fleet of 33 trucks, and they're basically running between Gauteng and Durban. And if we use a 30% discount of diesel to LNG or CNG, that could be imported or it could be locally developed, and all of that is possible if we looked at all the cost analysis of importing LNG or also producing LNG from onshore. And I think it's more important to look at the orange line in the table, but what you can basically see, if I can get to a point of 100% LNG, but obviously it's not a conversion of trucks, it's LNG truck, they can save $14 million rands a year. But even if I just do a 40% LNG, which would be a combination of truck conversions, that is dual fuel trucks, and also full LNG trucks. And all those cases, the return of investment is very, very fast and also quick, and they could make 31% to 59% return of investment. That's not bad at all. When a discussion that we touched on that in December, but if we can convert the N3 to diesel, you can see in the middle there, that's the Kinetico field. They've got the ER383 ore body that actually runs across the N3. And if you can start putting LNG plants up there, it's obviously on the corridor. And that's a very important corridor. I mean, it's really doing 40% of our imports to Gauteng on the truck roads. So if you look at that business case, so its location is on the N3 highway between Johannesburg and Durban. Initially, you put a 60 kiloton LNG terminal, maybe near Villiers. You put dual fuel stations on the route and also LNG fuel stations. And your initial target is 6% diesel. That's based on that 60%, and then you can grow the trajectory. The drivers, currently there's around 13,500 vehicles of these transport vehicles on that road per day in one direction. And N3 is consuming 10% of the diesel of South Africa. The modeling used 22 Rand a litre for diesel with LNG saving of 30%. Based on the Polytech LNG plants and feedstock from Kinetico, from what we know of the Kinetico concession, the impact is between 1 and 8 billion per year saving on diesel imports, and it's depending obviously now on the scale. But on 6% LNG, you already have 1 billion, and if you run up to a 75% replacement, you can have an 8 billion rand total saving. But what's also more important, you actually reduce the diesel imports. I mean, the diesel imports start at 33 billion and it ends up at 8 billion in that scenario. And that had a major impact on South Africa. The return of this is all around 25% with paybacks of 4.5 and capex of 175 million US. Yeah, and thank you. That is it. Thank you, Wilmien, and thank you, the audience.
Thank you, Koos. We live on the N3, and every time I travel on the N3, I just think, oh, no more trucks. There is loads of trucks on our road. And the first time I heard Koos talking about the N3 project, I thought, just don't bring more trucks. but it's not about how many trucks. We already have many trucks. It's about having these trucks being more environmentally friendly, saving money. I always love it when there's technical solutions that will save money, but also give less CO2 into the atmosphere. So what a brilliant case study. Thank you for that, Chris. And there's so many things we can still talk around this idea of converting the N3 corridor from diesel to alternatives. Let's look at a little bit deeper, a bit more practical things and the impacts on the carbon footprint, impacts on operating costs, and so much more. And for that, we have our first external speaker today, Eddie Cook, who's going to talk to us. Now, Eddie has started as a mechanical engineer for a few years, but then he jumped into LPG, liquefied petroleum gas business. When the natural gas became available in 2004, he was one of the first people who looked at converting vehicles to operate on compressed natural gas, CNG. As if that is not enough, he's an independent consultant at Gas4E. He was also the director of the South African Gas Association, SAGA, technical director of the Southern African Biogas Industries Association, SABIA. He's also the SABS SANS standard convener for CNG, LNG, and biogas, as well as the standards chairman for alternative fuels for vehicles. A very, very busy man, and so privileged that he has time to come and talk to us today and share some of his expertise. Eddie is going to talk about alternative gas fuel for the transport sector to reduce the carbon footprint and operating cost in Southern Africa. With that, I'm handing over to Eddie. Thank you, Eddie.
Okay, thank you. Sorry for that delay. It's always difficult if you're not in your own office, but let's make the best of it. Thanks for the introduction, and thank you, Chris, for your introduction. Firstly, from my side, I'm going to present to you CNG Africa, who we are. Combinedly, with everybody in the team, we've got over 70 years experience in the gas industry. As mentioned, we started off in the early 2000s in the LPG industry, and then subsequently from 2005 we worked a lot in the CNG. We've done a few well-to-wheel projects. Specifically, why we say well-to-wheel is because our interest in converting our vehicles, and this included from biogas to LNG. And we also have more than 20 years of established consulting, support and consultation in CNG equipment or gas-related equipment. And that brings us basically to what we do. Logically, in the CNG industry, we work a lot in the high pressure with high pressure equipment. We love to do turnkey projects, basically from basic greenfield design, right, with all the approvals going right through to the end product. And logically, what's very important after a product is the operational and maintenance, where we also get involved. Vehicle conversions itself, we've done quite a few projects, and James will actually, my colleague would actually touch a little bit more on the projects that we've done. And logically, people in their view of gas and is gas safe, we found the best way of convincing people that gas is actually safer than most of the other fuels is by training, informing people, giving people, sharing information, passing on knowledge, all part of training, on-site training, in-process training. All this is very important to understand the safeties and what's required in the gas industry itself. And as soon as you go through all these processes and work with it, in our belief, gas is a fantastic alternative in the transport sector itself. And you say, why gas? Is this something new? Maybe it's for a lot of you new in South Africa, but here's some examples of vehicles running on gas during the world wars, where fuel was limited and they had to rely on wood, through a gasification process to actually drive these vehicles still, because there was not enough fuel. These were all spark ignition vehicles, so it was quite easy to just add another gas product as a fuel, and on these bases, it worked perfectly for them going forward. Things progressed. People started taking gas, natural gas, putting it firstly in this balloons bags on top of vehicles. On the right-hand side top, you'll see there's one of the first dual fuel vehicles where a diesel gas vehicle was running on natural gas, where the gas was used on top. Later on in the country India, this technology as a dual fuel was continued to use, and the indication of how much gas he's got left to travel with was very clear. A full bag, you can do a full trip. As your bag collapses, you know you need to go and refill. So very practical technology and very cheap technology. However, they realized that you couldn't get far with this product in a bag, and the technology of compressing the gas and putting it into cylinders at a high pressure, where people are quite scared of high pressures. These all have certain safety devices and things like that. But just to prove to you, these technologies 80, 100 years ago was already on the roads in other countries being used, and it actually, the technology just advanced, got safer, much more reliable, and also much better in the way. We need to go and look at what type of gases there are out there and what's their applications. A lot of people know of the conversion of LPG vehicles. It's a very common conversion. That's your typical cooking gas that you use in your house for heating or cooking. This can be used on vehicles, and it's very popular to be used on smaller vehicles, petrol-driven vehicles, to convert them. The detail, James will go in further. Then we have the CNG, as mentioned. Yes, we're working at a very high pressure at 200 bar. In some countries, the pressures goes as high as 350 bar. At this stage, we stick to 200 bar, and in the heavy industrial applications, we can go up to 250 bar. Then what Koos mentioned there, liquid natural gas. Yes, the pressure is a lot lower. You can store a lot more, a good ratio of 1.1 to diesel. However, this is a cryogenic gas at a very low temperature. We're talking about minus 162 degrees that this is stored. However, with LNG, your range is much better, your storage capacity, your gas, your energy density is a lot better. And we believe going forward between CNG and LNG will be the ideal solution. What is also important with both of these gases, we can get them in renewable sources. There's projects where you take biogas and turn the biogas either into CNG as a vehicle fuel. I believe as biogas progresses and there's more biogas available, the production of biogas to LNG would also become a good green source of fuel and a renewable gas of fuel. A big buzzword out there, and I'm just going to quickly touch on that, is hydrogen. It's also an ideal fuel for internal combustion engines. A lot of development is still being done on that. It also links up quite nicely with the EV market with fuel cells. But at this stage, we need to follow a technology advancing or technology curve. And I believe the best way actually now to move from our heavy diesel fuels is actually go to natural gas and use the different technologies like CNG and LNG to replace these diesel fuels going forward. As Koos indicated, there's a lot of technologies and a lot of options of getting the gas in, in our country, we're not just relying anymore just in imports. On the point of safety, I think it's very important to know that there's quite a lot of standards under SABS or SAN standards as they're known, which we are actually using already in the country for conversions. Some of these conversions, as mentioned, was done more than 20 years ago. As the standards and gets developed in Europe, we're actually adopting a lot of ISO and EC standards. So we follow the international trend of safety, reliability, and making sure that we keep on top of the advancements of technologies in the rest of the world for optimum, reliable, and efficient use of gas as an alternative fuel. So the concerns about insurance and safety and all those type of things are already addressed. Regarding policies, yes, there is certain policies about reducing your carbon footprint, and that actually assist in the conversion or reducing of your carbon footprint, some tax rebates. And if we actually look at a typical diesel molecules, you can clearly see the amount of carbon molecules in diesel compared to methane, as we say in natural gas, is a sustainable reduction. From 12 carbon molecules, we drop down to 1 carbon molecule. Methane, as CH4, is your last hydrocarbon fuel before you go into hydrogen itself. So it's the last and the best step that you can make to convert all your other fuels, all your hydrocarbon fuels. I'm talking including petrols, paraffins, HFOs, LFOs, all those hydrocarbon fuels, propane, butane, all of those fuels. Your last step with your last carbon molecule is methane itself. And so we believe this is the ultimate hydrocarbon fuel to be used in the industry for transport. We know how much emissions is actually caused by fuels in the country, because we're relying quite a lot on our road transport. Our public transport is also very limited. Our railway systems needs to be upgraded and implemented again. So we rely quite a lot on fuel in the transport sector, and that's why it's very important that we go to a fuel that's good for the environment, it's cost saving, reliable, accepted by a lot of the OEMs, as mentioned, and all these development by the OEMs is already done. Here's just some indications of CO2 emissions, greenhouse gas emission reductions, your sulfur contents, your NOxes. All those things can be managed much better in a natural fuel. The fact of using renewable sources as well as a fuel source also actually makes your carbon footprint negative. As I mentioned, there's a lot of tax incentives by reducing this. But I think what's very important, when you don't have a lot of policies or grants in a country to actually go to a lower carbon fuel, reduce carbon footprint, it's always important to see what's the net effect on your bottom line. And at this stage, all these natural gases available in the country is a lot cheaper than the alternative as diesel. And therefore, it would be the ideal way of using this fuel within the market as an alternative. If we look at where's natural gas and what's the lifespan of natural gas and things like that, you could see there the estimate at this stage is there's still about 50 years of oil available in the world, compared to a base case of 250 years of natural gas available. You can see the countries with high natural gas usage, availabilities, and what's their options. I believe with all the gas finds within the Southern African region, going on with our neighbors around us, including Namibia and things like that, I think the supply of natural gas and alternatives in the Southern African region we're getting to a point where it's the ideal opportunity to change, and it's also important to become part of the first movers in this process. A lot of proof of concepts was done already in the country that you will hear from a lot later. Things were tested in conditions in South Africa, and it's now time that we have to actually start implementing. If we have to compare this fuel against a lot of the other fuels and things like that, you can see where petrol, diesel is sitting, why LPG long time ago was a good alternative, where CNG is sitting, but you can also see where your ethanol fuels, your E95s, E85s sit. Not a fuel a few years ago, very popular fuel in the South Americans, but now not so popular anymore, and also where your biogas sits. So from an emission point of view, moving to natural gas, CNG, LNG would sit in the same bubble as you see it there, but also remember wherever that source comes will also determine what's a total well-to-wheel carbon footprint, and that will also determine where it comes from. If we look at EVs in our country, we all know where most of our electricity is coming from. It's a coal-based industry, and therefore actually the complete well-to-wheel scenario for electrical vehicles in our country doesn't look very good at this stage. This is just an example of a dedicated CNG bus exhaust outlet running for a few years. As you can see, the minimum carbon compared to any diesel vehicle. And actually, the biggest problem that you actually sit with here is the fact that these units start rusting because there's not actually carbon or anything protecting this emission system. I'm leaving this technology points based on what James will talk about. There's a lot of different technologies, your biofuel conversions, where you move directly from spark ignition petrol vehicles to gas. That's 100% switch over with the option to switch back. Dual fuel, where you use diesel and gas simultaneously. A lot of development already done over the years, optimizing that, where we get to a stage where there's some vehicles now running 90% gas, 10% diesel. Then your monofuels, your dedicated vehicles, including electrical vehicles. Then we've got hybrids. There's a lot of heavy duty vehicles where there's a gas engine inside actually charging the batteries of the vehicle or driving a hydraulic unit to drive the vehicle. And what we mustn't forget is also heavy industry vehicles, yellow equipment, and then also all your fixed or industrial engines can also run on gas. We're talking about pumps, generators, forklifts. All those vehicles can also run on CNG. Yes, some of CNG, LNG infrastructures, as we said, infrastructure is very important for developing this market. Here you can do CNG and LNG on the same refueling station. Here's a point of Scania with their LNG vehicles going forward. I know the Q&A is coming a little bit later. Thank you for your attention, and I hope it was valuable. Thank you very much.
I love those pictures of the old cars with these, what do you call them? The gas bladders almost. I heard there's still gas bladders used in the industry, but those gas bladders on top of the roof, hey, that I've never realized that. So what a blast from the past. You've seen that. And I agree with you, Eddie. At the stage you said it's now start to implement. The technology is there. The safety aspects has been addressed. The knowledge is there. We can just start to implement it. And I totally agree with you on that. And also interesting how you mentioned many people look at the hybrid cars or electrical cars at least and say that is environmentally safer. But it depends on where the electricity comes from and what was used to generate the electricity, whether it's really a better option or not. So a lot of food for thought. And I think you could have spoken for much longer what a big subject it is we are trying to cover in a short period of time today. That was lovely, and the practicalities. But now we're going to go even more practical, a bit more in depth with James Barnard. Now, James was a qualified diesel mechanic and millwright, but he was introduced in the world of natural gas fueled vehicles in 2009. He was so fascinated, he couldn't resist sinking his teeth deeper into this technology. And then he founded CNG Africa, a CNG equipment business in 2017. And currently he's the MD of that company. Now, CNG Africa specializes in the installation and commissioning of CNG equipment in vehicles of all shapes and sizes, up to the factory conversions to use natural gas as a fuel for their processes. So James, very practical, very much actively involving in promoting the use of natural gas in Southern Africa. With that, I'm going to hand over to James with his title, Vehicle Conversions to Gas.
So, hi everyone. Thanks, Wilhelmine, for the introduction. Thanks for the opportunity that you gave us and this platform so we can talk a little bit about what we do and what we've achieved thus far. So, CNG Africa, as Eddie also touched on it, we specialize in converting vehicles, and we were some of the first companies in South Africa to do conversions. That slide that you see there is just a basic outline of what a conversion consists of. So you do an add-on conversion kit to a vehicle that already runs on petrol, and this we call a biofuel conversion. Just a couple of facts regarding natural gas vehicle conversions. You can also do LPG conversions, and that's called autogas. CNG is called natural gas conversions. And the vehicles can switch automatically between petrol and gas as the driver would like to. The system has been tested over a couple of years, so it's quite safe. Cost savings are down to 50%. And the recovery return of investment is quite quick, depending on kilometers driven. Some of the taxi conversions that we've done on Toyota Quantums, they recover those investments within 4 months. So it all depends on the mileage they drive. The longevity of the engine also increases due to the clean burning of the natural gas, and we see service intervals actually growing, and you can service the vehicle then later on. If we look at the next slide, some of the applications for natural gas, it comes in the form of liquid natural gas. We've touched base on that as well. The characteristics entails that you can do more miles with smaller amount of volume that you carry around. Those applications are usually for your heavy duties, like your marine applications, your bigger trucks, your trains. And then what we introduce now in South Africa is the dual fuel applications, where we convert diesel engines to run simultaneously on diesel and natural gas. That gives you the flexibility of longer ranges. If you run out of natural gas, you can still continue on with your diesel. And when you get to a CNG filling station again, you can fill up again. Our plan in South Africa will be then to convert these CNG dual fuel trucks later on to LNG. And it's some of the equipment changes that you need to do that will allow you to swap to LNG as well. Then the last line there shows light duty vehicles. That's usually where we do the biofuel conversions, like the previous image that you saw. So just the next image will show you a couple of projects that we've done and completed. We've done quite a few forklifts at Toyota factory in Durban. So for those of you driving a Hilux, you can also brag that it's not only a bakkie, but it's also made from green energy. Then the next slide, we have dual fuel applications in South Africa that we've already tried and tested. We have a truck there on that image that we converted to dual fuel. And then next to it is a bus from Metrobus. Metrobus ordered 150 of these buses running on dual fuel. And they also switch then to diesel, 100% diesel if they run out of gas. So they have that option as well. Then the next slide will just show you pictures of a daughter station also at Metrobus in Johannesburg. That is just to show you that natural gas can be moved to different locations to your depot. So if you decide on converting your fleet, we can bring the CNG to your site and you can fill at your convenience at your own depot. The next image we have is dedicated vehicles running around in South Africa. You'll see a Scania truck there that runs on 100% natural gas. There's no petrol, no diesel, no electric, anything else powering this truck. The same with the Mercedes-Benz bus. Tshwane Metro has ordered 40 of these buses a couple of years back, and they are still in operation. They are also running 100% on natural gas. Then the next slide will show you the comparison in volume that you need to carry around with you on the vehicle. Unfortunately, compressed natural gas takes up a lot of volume at this stage. You need to compress it up to 200 bar to host at least enough energy on your vehicle to be able to travel quite a distance. There you have the comparison compared to LNG, liquid natural gas, and then you have your diesel volume there as well. So yeah, at this stage, compressed natural gas do take a lot of space and weight up on your vehicle. But as the technology progresses, we are moving towards smaller volumes and smaller weight on your vehicle. Then the next slide just will indicate the ruggedness and the testing of these CNG cylinders that we are currently using in South Africa. So the OEM manufacturers, they put these cylinders through various tests, drop tests, fire tests, hand grenade tests, just to make sure that you don't have to do those tests yourself in your vehicle. Then the next slide will just give you an overview of what a dual fuel conversion will entail. So you'll have your cylinders, then you will have your pressure reducer, and then you will have your gas injection into your engine that will mix us with the diesel. Then it comes with its own management system. It has a computer box and a switch that's installed, and that you can also switch off the diesel other than a natural gas if it needs to. So this system manages the mixture of the diesel and the gas, so you don't get engine damage or any other bad emissions coming out the exhaust. So this is all developed, and it is already in use for a couple of years. So we are proud to say that we've done these conversions also in South Africa, and we've got a couple of these trucks already running around as trials, and we have real good success rates on these conversions. Then if you see the next slide, we'll show you the Aero rating. So when you go to natural gas, it will immediately take you to Aero 6 emissions. Where if you buy a newer truck these days from the OEMs in South Africa, you don't necessarily get down all the way to Aero 6. And our diesel at the moment in South Africa don't allow it at every filling station. So if you are into the market of carbon credits, this will immediately help you start saving on your carbon credits. The next slide is just to show the flammability limits of natural gas. It's quite safe. You will need a lot of oxygen. If we go into that graph, it's just best. It is a safer energy compared to other energies if you put it into the same environment. So we are quite confident, and we are happy to say that we haven't had any major accidents. And when vehicles were in accidents with natural gas on board, this equipment was quite safely designed to vent out gas, and we haven't had any major explosions. So this is just to indicate that it is still a safe energy source to use. Then just a quick principle, how diesel blend work. On the next slide, we'll show you the system introduced natural gas into the intake system. It mixes with the diesel, and it ignites by the diesel burning up, and that's how it gets ignited. Because your diesel engine doesn't have a spark plug, you still need your diesel to ignite your gas. So yeah, it's quite a simple idea which works quite very good, but from our experience in the market. And just on the safety slide after that will indicate the difference between CNG, diesel, petrol, ethanol, hydrogen, and acetylene, how safe natural gas is compared to other fuels.
Thank you, James. I am amazed at the amount of tests that these things are going through, and even the launching test of these cylinders. It's absolutely incredible. Thank you for that, James, and lovely to hear from someone who knows what he's talking about and who has been part of that, and to confidently tell us for so many years it's been tested. And one of the questions in my mind would have been, what will happen if a truck goes into a crash? And you've already answered that question without me even asking that. Lovely, and thank you again for all our speakers to put a lot of information in this squeeze of time to allow us to have all of that in an hour. We really appreciate it. Some of my colleagues went with CNG and they looked at a Scania truck that was converted, and I had so much FOMO. I'm not big into vehicles, but I'm big into technology. And I feel left out that I did not have the opportunity to see one of these trucks that is converted. Maybe one day it will come on my bucket list. But thank you, speakers, for having all that wonderful information that you shared with us today. I want to quickly tell you about our next webinar. I can't believe it's webinar 10 that we're already preparing for. Where we're going to talk about the infrastructure projects for gas imports into South Africa. So if we want to import gas, what infrastructure is needed, what is there already, and what we can do. So book for that one and look out for our next webinar as well. And please tell us, which of the topics that we've addressed this year did you like the most? What do you want to hear more of, so that we can tailor-make something for you next year? With that, the official part of the webinar has completed. We are going into the Q&A session now. Thank you for joining us up till now. If you have to leave, we would love to see you next month, but if you stay, we're going to continue this discussion.